The Republican presidential primary field is filled with so many extreme candidates that former South Carolina governor and former U.S. ambassador to the United Nations, Nikki Haley, is seen as the moderate of the bunch. But yesterday, we got a reminder of what moderate means among the Republican presidential candidates these days.
What was the cause of the United States Civil War?
Well, don't come with an easy question or anything. I mean, I think the cause of the Civil War was basically how government was going to run, the freedoms and what people could and couldn't do.
Actually, Governor, it was an incredibly easy question. Unfortunately for Haley, her response conspicuously lacked the only correct answer.
In the year 2023, it's astonishing to me that you answer that question without mentioning the word slavery.
What do you want me to say about slavery?
What do you want me to say about slavery? That is the supposed moderate in the Republican primary right now. So weak. And today, after a wave of backlash for her comments, Haley attempted a cleanup tour. Here she was on a New Hampshire radio show this morning.
Of course, the Civil War was about slavery. We know that. That's the easy part of it. What I was saying was, what does it mean to us today? What it means to us today is about freedom. That's what that was all about. It was about individual freedom. It was about economic freedom. It was about individual rights.
Sure, the Civil War was about individual freedom, unless you were an enslaved black person whose freedom was denied at birth. Sure, it was about economic freedom, unless you were an enslaved black person whose nation-building labor was bred, violently coerced, and uncompensated. Sure, it was about individual rights, unless you were enslaved in a nation where a chunk of the country seceded from the Union and went to war because it wanted to continue to deny you those very freedoms. And Nikki Haley should know all of that. Haley was the governor of South Carolina, the first state to secede in the Civil War, a state that made its reasoning incredibly clear. The opening sentence of South Carolina's 1860 proclamation seceding from the Union directly mentions slavery. And the proclamation goes on to cite, quote, increasing hostility on the part of non-slaveholding states to the institution of slavery as the state's explicit reason for leaving the Union. When Haley was asked about the cause of the Civil War back then, in 2010, she described it as a fight over, quote, tradition versus change.
I think it was tradition versus change is the way I see it.
Tradition versus change on what?
On individual rights and liberty of people.
Whose rights, Nikki Haley? Which people? What tradition? The tradition of slavery? That is the Republican Party's moderate primary candidate. Joining me now, Jaime Harrison, chair of the Democratic National Committee. Chairman Harrison, thank you very much for being here this evening. Like Nikki Haley, you are from South Carolina. Were you surprised by your former governor's framing of the Civil War?
Not surprised at all, Jonathan. Any black person in South Carolina always knew that this is who Nikki Haley is. And she has told us who she is time and time again. When she tried to justify celebrating Confederate History Month by equating it with celebrating Black History Month in South Carolina, she made the same downright offensive whitewashing comments on the Civil War in the past. And again, as you said, arguing that it was tradition versus change. I mean, so I'm glad that the rest of the country are taking their rose-colored lenses off as it relates to Nikki Haley, but there is nothing that is moderate about her. It is all about ambition. It's all about power, and she will take away individual freedoms and rights in order to get that power. But again, she epitomizes what MAGA extremism is in the Republican Party right now. When you think about it, Donald Trump is now parroting Hitler, talking about the poisoning of the blood of the nation. You got Ron DeSantis, who and it's so interesting that he's beating Nikki Haley up on this comment, but he was the one who just said that slavery benefited the slaves. Right. So again, these are the front runners in the Republican Party right now, these MAGA extremists. All of these apples, Jonathan, are rotten. You can pick one of them, but they're all rotten. And this contest, this election, is going to be about individuals, Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, who stand up to protect the freedoms of Americans, and individuals like Nikki Haley and Donald Trump and Ron DeSantis, who are actively attacking and destroying those freedoms.
Because you mentioned Ron DeSantis, you've given me the opportunity to switch gears. And I want to talk to you about something Nikki Haley said today at a town hall where she was specifically asked if she would pardon Donald Trump if she were president and he were convicted in one of his many criminal cases. Listen to this.
He asked if I would pardon Trump, and I've answered this before. I would pardon Trump. What's in the best interest of the country is not to have an 80-year-old man sitting in jail that continues to divide our country. What's in the best interest of the country would be to pardon him so that we can move on as a country and no longer talk about him.
Sharon, can we move on if Trump were pardoned? With the exception of Chris Christie, is the entire goal of the primary field to not alienate Trump's base, which is really the base of the GOP?
Pretty much. You know, it's so amazing, Jonathan, that the rule of law is important to the Republicans when it applies to everybody else other than themselves. You know, they're always seeking the rule of law for somebody else. They're seeking rule of law for dictators in other countries. But anytime that it applies to them and the misgivings and the things that they are doing, you know, we need to give them a pass. But again, this is just epitomizes the extremism in this country that we see with MAGA Republicans. This election will boil down to very clear contrasts. It's hope versus fear. It's progress versus chaos. It's the future versus the past. And so that's what people have to make a decision on. Where do they want to go? Do they believe that America's best days are anchored in a bygone past, or do they believe that our best days are in the future? Joe Biden got into this race because he knew that we were in a battle for the soul of this nation. He has a sense of moral clarity. These people don't have any core values other than destroying the freedoms of individuals in this country and gaining power. We see it in the lackluster performance of the Republicans in Congress, the biggest do-nothing Congress in the history of do-nothing Congresses. We see it in the leadership on the campaign trail with these folks. You're going to get gaffe after gaffe, and they're just going to tell us exactly who they are. So, folks, believe them. Believe them. But the one thing that they should know, Jonathan, we won't go back. We're not going back to the old days and the old past, that we are going to fight like hell to make sure that we protect the freedoms that we have gained in this country. And we won't let Nikki Haley, Donald Trump, or Ron DeSantis take us back.
I know I'm not going back, that's for sure. DNC Chair Jaime Harrison, thank you very much for coming on tonight.
Thank you.